Ma'am, I remember as a child, and I think you can elaborate on it, as a child, we would go visit in New Orleans, and if we spent the night at Mama and Papi's house on Rocheblade, she had this big bed, which Mary Elva has now, and we'd get up, and Mama would get up in the bed with us, and she would tell us the story of one eye, two eye, and three eye. And that was always such a treat to get to hear that story. But they
why don't you tell us that?
I think an Alma has to tell the story. Do you remember the story of one eye, two eye, and three eye?
Oh, just vaguely. It's a Grimm's fairy tale.
Yeah. Well, maybe after a while, we can start and see how much we get around the circle.
We could get in our pajamas and you could tell it to us.
We'll come up in your bed tonight. You can tell us.
There's a spare one in my room.
Okay.
There, the Brothers Grimm sitting over there. We're going to zoom in on Tim. See just what Tim, oh, that's nice. That's my middle sister's youngest son, illustrating his skills.
Did you want some cookies?
Makes me
Yeah.
nervous.
Michelle, if you want to.
Michelle, you've never noticed in your life.
No, I mean, I just want to.
Get one of Bill.
Okay, this is a story that my mom found. She reads it to her class at school a lot, and she said that whenever she reads it, she just kind of loses herself in it. She just forgets they're there because she thinks about us and about this family reunion that we have. This story, and I read it today, and I agree with her. It's so us. It's really, it's a kid's story, but I think you all will enjoy it a lot. I'll open up our history time tonight, and it's called The Relatives Came. Can y'all see that picture? Because I want y'all to see the pictures. They're really funny. The Relatives Came. Okay. Says it was in the summer of the year when the relatives came. They came up from Virginia. They left when their grapes were nearly purple enough to pick, but not quite. There they are leaving Virginia. They had an old station wagon that smelled like a real car, and in it they put an ice chest full of soda pop and some boxes of crackers and some bologna sandwiches, and they came from Virginia. They left at 4 in the morning when it was still dark, before even the birds were awake. They're leaving. They drove all day long and into the night, and while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about their almost purple grapes back home. They thought about Virginia, but then they thought about us too, waiting for them. Driving to the mountain. This gets to the good part. So they drank up all their pop and ate all their crackers and traveled up all those miles until finally they pulled into our yard. Here they are, running out to meet them. Then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us all around their car, pulling against their wrinkled Virginia clothes, crying sometimes. They hugged us for hours.
It's like Wednesday night.
Yeah. So there they go. Then it was into the house, and so much laughing and shining faces and hugging in the doorways. You'd have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get from the kitchen to the front room. Those relatives, they're all hugging. And finally, after a big supper, 2 or 3 times around until we all got a turn at the table, there was quiet talk, and we were in 2s and 3s throughout the house. The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was good since there weren't any extras, so a few squeezed in with us, and the rest slept on the floor, some with their arms thrown over the closest person, or some with an arm across one person and a leg across another. It was different going to sleep with all that new breathing in the house. They're all asleep.
That was Swan's Cove. Yeah. You're on Ryan, we're right in the middle. Everybody's walking on.
The relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend the garden, and they fixed any broken things they could find. They're fixing broken things. They ate up all our strawberries, all our melons, then promised we could eat all their grapes and peaches when we came to Virginia. Y'all can look at the pictures. Too much. We were so busy hugging and eating and breathing together. Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chest and headed back to Virginia at 4 in the morning. We stood there in our pajamas and waved them off in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road. Then we crawled back into our beds that felt too big and too quiet, and we fell asleep. The end.
Since we are a big group, we have all kinds of questions we want to ask y'all. But since we are a big group, I think what we need to do is ask one question at a time and let one person answer at a time so that those of us who don't hear well can hear better. I'm going to just start it off, and I have a question for Aunt Alma. And Alma, I want to know, when were you maddest at your brother Leonard, and when were you maddest at your brother Palmer?
And who the most?
And you can be as early as this past year.
I can remember lots of times.
Tell us one good one.
One good one. I really can't think right now.
Tell us stories about you getting them down and blowing your hair in their face.
Oh, yeah. I told it probably to them. They would do things to me and make me mad and pick on me because I was the girl. And they were the two boys against me. But so I had hair just about down to here. It wasn't real long. But I was a little bit bigger and would get them down on the floor and hold them down, and then shake my hair in their faces, and it would make them real mad.
A few years ago, I used to do that to Pat and Tim, too.
I know, I did it to David.
Yeah,
I sure
David.
did. I took after Grammy Wells. I'm so proud.
Now I know who to blame for that.
Do what?
Now I know who to blame for that.
That's right.
She woke up the next morning with the short hair.
That's right. You know, Bonnie and Kathy did that to me. Bonnie and Kathy did it to me, Greg.
It's just start around the circle. And if you have something you'd like to ask them, or if you have something you think of that you want to share about growing up, you said you didn't start out at Rocha Blade, you started out somewhere else. So
Martha's first, and then Barone Street, and then Rocha Blade. Don't you all love those names?
That was almost before my time.
At our stage.
When we lived on Rushbrook Street, I remember Alma slept in a rollaway bed in the hall. And she came in one night, her feet were cold, so I went and got some old sweatpants and pulled them up, tied a knot in the bottom, and put them on her feet, and she was cozy and warm for the rest of the season.
By the way, your stories don't have to necessarily.
Down next, Tom and I shared a single bed in the end room. So we had, but we roll it up, and make it. I mean,
My bed.
her bed every day.
I remember sleeping in the hallway.
Yeah, they do.
But I slept in the hallway, see, and there was a screen door right at the end, like within about 8 feet of where my bed was. And lots of times I was scared because I could see outside. See, we didn't have air conditioning then, so we tried to get all the fresh air we could. And I could look out, and we had steps that went down to the basement. And I was always hearing somebody come up those stairs.
You thought you had it bad. I was sleeping with Leonard.
I had been gone somewhere one night and came into the bedroom and woke him up, and we shook hands and went on back to bed. Everybody thought it was so strange for us to shake hands, brothers in sharing the same bed, but anyway, we did.
I have a dresser in Julie's bedroom now that was yours, and I think you told me a story that was in their bedroom. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How'd she get that?
See, the boys got the bedroom. The boys, because there were two of them, they got the bedroom, and I got the hallway. But I had this That was the only thing that was a vanity dress in there that belonged to me. That was the only piece.
Could they touch it?
I don't know, did you ever think you touched it?
We got away from the kid, I mean.
Can I ask my question? This is like a big question that I've been thinking about. I know the answer for Grammy. I was wondering how each of you met your wives.
Oh.
I know how Grammy met my Daddy Uncle Bill's father. I know how she met Joe. I don't know how you all met, and I don't know how you all met.
Well, what, tell me that.
Well, yeah, why don't everybody go in case somebody doesn't know about Grammy. So everybody tell.
Well, I was at the YMCA in the gymnasium, I don't know whether we played basketball or whatever, and there was a fellow in the group from the employed boys who came and mixed with the kids in school, and he was going to a party up on, was it Louisiana or Colton? Miller.
We might as well go ahead and get the boxing gloves out right now.
As I said, the stories do not necessarily.
I think we should get them in separate rooms and have them tell the stories and get them on tape.
But I went with him and crashed the party and never did quit seeing Dot.
Was it love at first sight?
No.
We were 16, I was 16.
I was 50. We're a year and a half apart.
2 years.
So, certain times during the year.
This is a good secret. Nobody can argue with Grammy. Grammy gets to tell her story the way she doesn't have anybody to argue with.
Oh, by a second.
How did you meet Rhonda?
Oh, I went to a party where there were a lot of young church people
In New Orleans.
in New Orleans. And it was I think it was a New Year's party, because we were all dressed up. And there was a group of Baptist young people that were friends of ours, because we were the Third Presbyterian Church on Esplanade Avenue, and in the summertime, they were chicken. They didn't have an evening service. So we young people would meet for Christian Endeavor, and then from there, we would walk down and around to this little Baptist church. And there were a couple of the young women there. And there was one young man who taught at the radio school in New Orleans. And when these new boys would come from out of town to radio school, he would bring them to church, he would bring them to anything that we were doing, you know, if we were having a party or anything. And they brought Ron's father. And then he began to come to my church, the Presbyterian church.
He was scoping you out, huh?
Was he from New Orleans?
No, he was from Kentucky.
He had come
But
to
he
New
came and
Orleans to
took her
take
down
his
back to
course.
Alma's story.
And and you moved to Kentucky, right, from New Orleans, right? With him, didn't you?
That's right.
Oh, eventually.
Oh, okay, I thought you moved right.
Not that night.
Grammy, just one technical point. You said that was Ronald's father. Could you tell me about my father?
He's adopted, right? We were living in Glasgow, Kentucky, and that's where Ron was born. He was born in New Orleans.
Oh, my. Grammy, tell how you met Joe,
6
too.
weeks before Nelson.
No. I was born in New Orleans.
6 weeks before Nelson.
We never got this story.
Because we all went to hear this band. Who was it? Ishkabibble, and who was
Ishkabibble.
Ishkabibble?
We thought we had weird band names. Ishkabibble.
If you lived in Kentucky, how was he, how did it happen he was born in New Orleans?
Real?
Yeah.
Because I went home because my mama could help me take care of it.
That's, yeah.
I was never a problem.
He wouldn't sit still. And then when Judy was born, did you send them away?
how'd you meet Joe? I know how you met him, but go ahead for the
In
record.
Hawaii. We
Right.
were both at a convention, General Electric convention.
Grammy was down at the corner saying, "Hey, Sailor, new down."
Well, I wanna know where was Judy born? In Glasgow. How'd you protect her from them at that age?
What's the need?
I want to hear how Palmer and Maibelle met.
How we met, and you're
How did
supposed
you
to
all
tell
meet?
me.
We had a Saturday afternoon craft shop, the city of Houston, which I attended and tried to get some of my young people to attend. I had one once, but I enjoyed it. And at the end of the summer, they said they were not going to meet in the fall till next summer. But some of the people from First Methodist Church invited us to First Methodist Church to their, what do they call it, hobby night. And they had all kinds of activities that we could enter, biblical things and handcrafts and study of books of the Bible. And after the program, we go up foot floors.
I don't know about
We
the
do
fourth floor or something.
some square dance. Put your little foot out. And I was not the dancer in the family, Leonard was, but I got in line and got behind Maibelle and somebody she was with, and I kept bumping into her and trying to get to speak to her. And finally, I met her one time going to the symphony, climbing up the stairs, cheap seats, you know, with for a minister and young school teacher. And I got behind her and asked her if she could go out with me. And, I wanted to go visit for school, but that was a no-no. That was the exclusive River Oaks, and her principal wouldn't hear of it, so she said. But anyway, I got a date for this, the night after Thanksgiving, 42.
I don't remember.
Which is
the
today.
42. And we dated 4 or 5 nights, and finally, she agreed to come, and I had a toy shop at the West End Presbyterian Church. Had the kids come and do cutouts and make things, but they first had to recite something from the catechism or a Bible verse or 2 or 3 or a song. And when I met Maibelle, I understood she did some leather work, and she agreed to come and do some handwork, get some leather work. And that happened for a few weeks, and we dated, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, and finally proposed.
Finally, after 4 or 5
She said
times.
maybe.
I was gonna say, y'all kind of jump into things back then, did you?
We waited a long time.
I'd have been married a half a trillion times by then. Glad y'all enjoyed that.
We got permission to go to take her to New Orleans in my $250 Chevrolet to see my family. And we did, and we did the French Quarter, and that's where we got the little bell from the old the street car.
You've been collecting bells
You
that
told me it was a
long.
horse car.
Horse car.
The horse car, pull the street.
Well,
Horse
it's a
car.
street car drawn by a horse, and I have a picture to prove it. It was a horse car. And we bought it for $5. My daddy said, "You keep putting in a stick of furniture, and you give $5 for a bell? It'd be worth $500 now." They had one. The only other one we saw was in the Cabildo in the museum, and it was in a big glass case. And we saw one more that was for sale 1 or 2 years later on what street was it? Bourbon
I
Street,
don't know the street.
Royal, and I wouldn't buy it because it had too many letters missing from the bottom and no clapper. But I should have paid $5 for it because I could have easily gotten rid of it at the Bell Convention. Besides, and later when I married this girl, she had a bell that one of her pupils gave her because he said, Miss Kidd, why don't you have mother has a T-bell, but she won't let me use it. And
I had it there too.
she had it on her desk, and the little boy didn't think it was good enough, so he wanted her mother to get her T-bell back. That's right.
He didn't
Thought
think she could have a dinner
servants.
properly, but, you know, to call the servants that we didn't have.
So he gave her this pretty bell, with black on top, and it was a real nice tinkle. We still have it near the kitchen. When she called me sometimes, she called it. Sometimes. That's how we met.
And maybe doesn't concur with all this.
The toughest stumbling block that all of the in-laws had to overcome was
And when did this
getting
show?
past Papi, who was my dad, who was smaller than any of us. But he was really, really jealous of my mother and was even concerned about her husband and being close to him. And it created so many problems for Maibelle and Alma, but I was the fairhead boy, there was no problem. He was a tough one to get by in our family, and made it difficult in many ways. But it was interesting how they all tolerated it and continued.
Could I tell one thing off record that Palmer might like me to do? While we were in New Orleans, I met all the relatives. And we went to,
I'll just tell that story again.
well, they haven't heard it.
Not for the, we want to hear it.
I was supposed to feel hurt or something. I think it was funny though. But I was visiting all the people, and his other grandmother was a dear little lady, and she looked me up. We went to where she lived. She lived with one of the aunts, Aunt Annie, was that?
Mm-hmm.
And we were all having a nice visit around, and then she was near Palmer. And she said, well, Palmer, I really like the one you had here last year better.
That's the right way every time she tells it.
That's the way I heard it.
I wish I'd only heard that a couple of times too.
But you see, it'd be all right if you heard it said to you.
Yeah.
But if the girl you were with heard it, it
Yeah.
didn't work so well.
That's very true.
He didn't really register.
I want to tell you one thing about this lady here. You know, Leonard was a good-looking guy and had all the dates before he met Dot. There was an airport in New Orleans. It was New Orleans Airport on Lake Pontchartrain. It was called the Abe Shushan Airport. And it had a place where a lot of groups, sororities, and clubs had dances. And I had a couple of invitations to a dance one time, and I couldn't find a date. So I called up Alma Deloteus, my sister, and we had a date, and I was there and had fun. I danced most of the dances I saw, but I got 2 or 3 guys that I knew to dance with. But we had a real old time. And when we came home, put the key in there, we were afraid that my dad and my mama might wake and hear us, but we sneaked through the hallway, went back into the bathroom, and started talking about what good fun we had. We took turns undressing.
You all actually snuck around. I never heard any stories like that. That's really amazing to me. That just blows my mind. I thought you all 3 were going up for sainthood next year.
Does Poppy not approve of dancing? Did he, I mean,
No, he didn't mind that.
he didn't mind dancing?
No.
On Sunday, nothing.
But he wouldn't let them sit too close to anybody on the couch. He'd say, you're getting too familiar. Didn't he? Because Grammy always says, Poppy would say, you're getting too familiar when I sit by Jimmy.
He loved baseball, and they were being promoted on Sundays there. And so he didn't go on Sunday. He wasn't supposed to do that on Sunday. But he'd come home and he'd watch it on Sunday.
Did Mama cook on Sunday? Did she cook for everybody on Sunday?
Oh, yeah, we had the same menu every Sunday.
Tell us about that.
We had homemade noodles, which she would make on Saturday, and I would help her put the dough had that every Sunday, and
Just
stewed
noodles?
chicken, a 3.5 pound hen, I would go and get.
We had to go down and buy it down in the market. Had to wait a long time while the man took the feathers off.
No, they dunk it in a hot boiling water, and then they take the feathers off, and then cut the neck off, and then you start bisecting it. And we always got a 3.5 pound chicken. It was stewed, not wasn't fried or anything. I never heard of fried chicken.
Tomato gravy.
Was that just because it was in New Orleans, or was it because it was that time, that?
I guess.
I bet now
Typical, I think it was typical in.
Of Mama's family.
The noodle part? I've never heard of noodles in our family. I didn't know we had noodles.
Well, you really hadn't been part of the family, have you? You would.
Yankee Noodle Dandy?
Hamburger helper, but I didn't know that was the fresh noodles.
We invented that.
Oh, we invented noodles.
I gotta tell you a funny story that happened much later. Poppy and Memo in our home in Bowling Green visiting. Gosh, they were late years, but they had driven up by now.
Yeah, they used to.
And here, and Poppy, I usually got home around 5 o'clock in that neighborhood, and he was mad as a dickens because I wasn't home. And boy, he lit into Dot because I wasn't home. And then Mama lit into him for lighting into Dot. And then when I got home, he called me aside. Son, I think I'm in trouble. Will you help me? I think the women are mad. He was getting, his memory was getting very, very.
Well, tell the story about Poppy stopping right outside of Bowling Green and sitting going to the roadside park to rest before he drove into town.
Oh, when he was coming, driving.
To Glasgow. He was coming to Glasgow.
Memo was anxious to come and see the family, and he would take his time, and he would stop 30 miles away in one little town either direction and get his little table out and for Memo to get out and get the food out, and she would get itching to get the food.
I would be going nuts.
That's all like Uncle Palmer and his variety stores, right?
I didn't understand what Ron said.
That's all like Uncle Palmer and his variety stores, 5 and 10 stores.
Uncle Palmer.
That muffled your voice. I couldn't even.
Did you like the Bible stores and spend all your time there?
On trips, stopping at trips and
25 cents wouldn't go very far. We get a milkshake for 10 cents.
That's not
hot
like me.
dog for 5 cents.
That's okay.
And then we'd go visit my daddy and get a dime and go to the Sango, the Low State Theater. Saturday afternoon movie. I want to tell one thing about Lenny and Dot. One of the byproducts of Lenny courting Dot for a long time before she finally did it. I was invited to some of the parties that Dot had at her home through Lenny. I remember walking through Audubon Park, getting off St. Charles Avenue car, wearing a sports shirt and long cream trousers. I don't believe we wore coats. It was summertime. But I walked, went up to Broad Street, and it's located where Dot lived. But I got to dance with Dot and a lot of Dot's pretty friends who members of a sorority and new friends. And I met some good-looking girls there, but I never. There was one from Mississippi that I had a good time shining on.
Do we have any relatives in Mississippi?
And Maybelle's getting jealous.
But after they married, before they had children, one time I came home to New Orleans, and Lenny said, "Well, why don't you play tennis with Dot?"
That's true, we need to.
And Dot agreed to play, and we played in a court near Audubon Park, I believe it was. And Dot, of course, beat me, but I enjoyed it. That was, of course,
That's all right.
I love the ball a lot.
Mom and I had a big Little Rock. Did you ever tell them about that song?
I don't know if we want to go that way.
Dad didn't know about that.
Should we turn off the cameras for this part of it?
You and Dot had a date in Little Rock.
Oh, yeah.
You remember George A?
Joe
were riding
Childers.
from the sports item, the states item, and you went to the ball game, so we went to the ball game. Joe, Jane, and you, and I, and.
Joe Childers, the pitcher. I was covering the regional for the Jesuit High School baseball team. It went all the way to Chicago for the Little World Series.
And you went there too, didn't you? Did you go with them?
I have a question. What is your best memory, and this is for each of you, and all five of you actually, what is your best memory and your worst memories of Mama and Papi?
Uncle Palmer.
Stick with just worst memory.
I think Alma had the worst memories.
Your best memory.
I
You heard that? Oh, I'm sorry.
He was trying to block it out, Michelle.
I thought you didn't hear.
I think it was Leonard Palmer took me to a high school dance. And when I got home, my dad said, "You didn't dance with any strange boys, did you?"
When was it I took you out to?
Was that a best one or a worst one?
I had taken Alma to a dance out at the airport one time, and I would introduce her to fellow and say, "Mister and Miss Deloteus," and we're not married.
Now, come on, we want to hear things that really made you all mad about your parents and things that you liked about them.
We're not asking you for that, right?
That's why I'm not answering that, Ron.
I didn't hear it. You want to answer?
I have to think.
We have until Sunday.
We'll go get the food. Give me that.
We can go on to some more interesting things.
I asked my question a while ago about the boxer in the family. If you get a chance, I'd like to know about
The
that.
boxer.
Red Dog. Yeah,
You
you
took my question. I can't escape
Oh,
it.
yeah.
he used to box in the amateur ranks, and he was a pretty good lightweight boxer, and he went under the name of Red Dolan because his mother didn't want him fighting in the ring, and she didn't know it was him for a long time. But he was
What relationship was it?
Huh?
What
He was
relationship?
Mamma's brother, younger brother.
He was man when I was young.
Raymond Edith.
Raymond Davis was his name. He continued working and refereeing fights. I mean, he would give us tickets many times to go to the Coliseum and see all different kinds of weights, light weights, and very seldom heavyweights. But he was a real fond, I'd say, fan of boxing, my dad was.
I can remember going, he taking us to the boxing, for the matches.
Yeah, I remember.
Was he,
The Coliseum was
was he a friend of Jack Dempsey?
I'm sorry.
Was he a friend of Jack Dempsey? Didn't you know Jack
No,
Dempsey?
he was really a fan of the guy that ran around the ring and won the fight with Dempsey.
Corbett.
Corbett? No.
Sonny? Was it Sonny that beat Dempsey?
Sonny, yeah.
Gene Sonny?
He wasn't listening.
I'm not even listening on that Dempsey.
No, this was a boxer who was strictly a boxer. And he kept out of the length of the swing of Dempsey and had a decision and won the fight. And his name is, I should know it, but I don't know it.
His brother or sister was, I mean, his brother was.
It was German.
Mama's brother.
This is my mother's
Youngest brother.
youngest brother.
Could-
And she had another son, another brother, who was a big racehorse man. And he tried like the mischief to get Plum and I to become jockeys. I'm serious. And Poppy was shot.
But tell us, now that was, oh, you had a question.
Steve had a question.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just interested in what Mama and Papi's nationalities and heritages are, going back to when their company, their families may have immigrated from Europe.
That's right.
I mean, I've asked a number of times, and I've heard Spanish, I've heard French,
Mama was
My
Yes.
mother was of German descent, and we became very fond of a cousin of hers who was like we never had a grandfather, we never met a grandfather. And he came to live from Germany with Grandma Keepers, and he was like a grandfather to us. He was good to us. Loud.
What's his name?
We called him Loud. What was his
What
last
do
name?
you call it? K-L-O-O-R.
K-L-O-O-R.
Alec Cole.
And what town in Germany was he from?
Landau.
Landau, Germany.
Tell about Lally and the banana.
Oh, when Larry first came over,
We haven't heard the rest of Steve's question.
and the boy from Germany, the train landed, the train station was near the French market, and so, they got him, brought him home, and, so they got well, he didn't know what a banana was, they'd give him a banana and see what he'd do with it, how he would eat it. He had watched people at the station, and he had seen some people eating a banana, so he knew how to peel it, and not to eat the peel.
So he fooled them. Yeah, so finish these questions up.
I was gonna,
Yeah, what about the Deloteus? Poppy was at one time in a foster home, and his mother, I guess Mama, wasn't able to take care of him. And we got to know that family real well, but as far as the heredity, the closest we can come, the name was not, it was D-O-L-O-T-E-U-S, Deloteus. And it was really, we think of was it Spanish or French?
No, but she was Juanita, his grandmother was Juanita, and I just.
That's Spanish.
That she was Spanish.
Juanita Deloteus, yeah,
She
that's
looked-
Spanish.
She looks Spanish to me.
Just to let you know, I did a computer search of every phone book in the country, and there are no more Delotuses anywhere.
did you spell it different ways?
Our last hope,
Yeah, a couple different ways.
our last hope is figuring out too.
That's the only.
Yeah, that's right.
That's me.
Let's see what
No pressure.
Yeah. Don't feel it.
Yeah, that, I've always wondered, how did it get to be Mama and Papa?
Daddy, it would have been Daddy.
That's good.
Right, Dad would have,
Children.
yeah.
They did their best and.
We
That's
couldn't
like
say
mine
Katie
said
Keepers.
grand, mine said
Well,
grand.
They call her one
You
puppy.
can say grandma.
What was Mama's real name?
Katie?
Katie. Katie, what about Poppy?
William.
Frederick,
Yeah.
William Frederick Deloteus.
And he had a brother, a little older than he was.
I thought it was William Franklin.
Yeah, how many siblings were in, tell us
Yeah,
about
let's-
how many siblings in Puppy's family?
Just a minute, let's get the middle name. What was the middle?
Fred, it's Frederick.
Frederick.
Frederick, William Frederick.
Frederick.
It was D-O-L-O-T-E-U-S.
What,
And his brother worked for one of the department stores, and he always continued with D-O-L-O-T-E-U-S. And when my daddy, one of us, he took our birth certificates. He didn't like D-O-L-O-T-E-U-S, so he made it D-E-L-O-T-E-U-S. He took a knife and scratched it out and put an E on a birth certificate. And that's the truth.
For each one?
so it was Poppy that changed the name, the spelling?
Yeah.
It was him that changed it. Is something in being able to go back and just logically go back, and we really don't know who Poppy's grandparents were. We don't even know who they were.
We never had heard of him or knew of him,
Huh.
But you knew his
never
parents.
heard him speak of him. Yes.
You knew Poppy's parents?
We never,
Your grandparents?
No, he's saying,
Oh, okay.
Mama was his mother.
Okay. Juanita.
her name was Juanita. It was Poppy's mother.
And was she first generation in this country?
How do you spell Maibelle?
M-O-N.
M-E-R-E.
What?
It's M-A, not M-A, M-A is ma in French.
Yeah.
M-E-R-E with a little accent on the first E, and it's Maibelle.
That's French.
My mother.
All those
One
boys
Is that
I
right,
wrote
Tim?
up with M-E-M-E-R-E.
time I wrote Mama, and I spelled it M-A-M-A-W. Oh, and she didn't like it. She said it's M-A
born in this country?
She was born here.
Oh, yeah, Kate, yeah.
So, but, all right, how many siblings did Poppy have? He had just one brother?
No, he had a sister,
And Annie.
and Annie.
And Annie and a brother.
He had actually.
No, and Annie was Felix's mother.
Yeah, Felix was his brother.
No,
Oh, that's right.
And what was Annie's married to?
Then Annie was Mark.
So wait, who's Aunt Annie now?
She's a sister to Poppy.
And she was married to Martin.
And she married Mark. Do we have any idea where any of that?
Oh, yes.
I still keep, when I go to New Orleans, I always call one of the daughters.
And what's the daughter's name that you call?
Phoebe.
And she's one of the 6 boys?
Yes.
Yeah, she, and she had a stroke. And she's a terrific Christian. They had one of these, they went to one of these, not a typical church, but it was, the family was very.
Some of the guy,
Yeah.
right?
What was Phoebe's last name married to?
Ziegler.
Zealer.
Ziegler.
And then there's an Ollie.
Ali Talazak. Ali Talazak.
Ali Talazak is right.
And then there was.
Let me tell you about Phoebe.
Yeah.
Okay, listen about Phoebe.
I've had an interesting relationship with her. Keep up with her every time I go. She is praying for a miracle, and I always challenge her when I go because she's still steadfast. And I said, I'm convinced that you're going to have a miracle because you believe in it, and you're sincere about it. And you have to believe and eliminate any other thoughts. I call her every time she jump out of bed. She says, I'm looking forward to jumping out of bed and being able to do the things that I used to do. And when I call her, I said, did you jump out of bed today?
How old is Phoebe now?
She's about 79.
Right around my age.
And
But she has a close-knit family living near her, taking care of her.
Phoebe, I just want to. Phoebe is Poppy's sister's daughter.
Annie's daughter.
And was there only one child was Phoebe the only child?
Phoebe had a sister named Alma. And Gene Talasak was her husband. And he was an amateur boxer too, Gene Talasak. He was very good. And Poppy was fond of him because he liked boxing. But anyway, they had a good marriage and children.
I talked to Ali in Pensacola about 3 months ago.
Really? Down in
Pensacola. And
they stayed with the Presbyterian Church that left the USA Church.
TCU.
I see Ellis, you know,
Oh,
we see
yeah,
Ellis once or twice a year.
Yeah, we
Well,
saw her
they-
last year. She came to a shower.
They were close to Ellis, and Ellis
She is
loved them.
beautiful. That woman
Their
is
interest.
She spent the night in our driveway in your people.
the
She
inspiration.
came to a shower.
And who is Alice now?
She's the sister.
Yeah,
Ellis
yeah.
Ellis and Phoebe.
She's one of the 3 daughters of Phoebe.
No, Annie's daughter.
I mean, Annie. She's Phoebe's.
Phoebe, Annie, and
And Ollie.
So there was 3 sisters that were the daughters of Poppy's sister, right? Three.
Ellis, that man, Dana, what's Dana's last name?
She's a sweet.
Goff, G-O-F-F. Yeah, Goff.
If you all pause a minute, I'd like to mention that the middle sister, Alice, she's an outstanding Christian. She worked in the headquarters of the
Some of the God church.
Family of God Church in Springfield, and we visited her there with children, and I preached in one of the churches in Springfield. And Alice came with us both times to hear me preach. And later she met and married a fellow that came to one of our family reunions with their pet dog, Wesley Stevens. And she was very fond of him. And when he died, she was taking care of a woman who was a good friend of ours who had been sick a long time. And after she died, the husband became, she was helping him with affairs, with, she had known all about her papers, the thing, business things she was taking care of. And he proposed marriage, and some of you all met him. They came to see us where we live now in Fort Mill. And
They dated 1 week and got married.
And that's not, this is Wesley.
No.
This is Ellis.
Oh, sorry, Dale. Okay.
How was your experience?
Well, I would go periodically, you know, it was one of those things that you always feel like, you know, that book, A Cup of Christmas Tea. That's what I always think of when I think of Alice, because she was one of those people,
Loving person.
yeah, just a minute. You know, even if I didn't have time, when I was in Springfield, I thought, well, I'll just run by and say hi, because when you go there, you never want to leave, because she'd say, oh, sit and have a cup of tea. I had some cookies, I mean, they were like memo cookies that, you know, they were always there. And so one day, 2 years ago, I went by her house and I thought, oh, I just need to see her, because I would go to give her hugs and you know, inspiration, and I would leave just, you know, soaring, just feeling like, you know, she had given me so much inspiration and just renewal. But I went to the house and I went up to the door. It's this pink house in Springfield, Missouri. I mean, bright pink. So I went up to the door and there was nothing in the house. It was empty. And I mean, I really got in the car and just cried. And I thought, something's happened to her and nobody knows it. And we don't, mom and dad don't even know about it. And so I went home and I called Daddy, and he called Phoebe, and Phoebe said, no, she's fine, she just got married. So then Phoebe called Ellis, and the next day Ellis called me and she said, oh honey, I told Dale I've got to call my little niece in Monette, because if she comes by the house, she'll really be worried that I'm not married. It was just horrible. I mean, it was the worst feeling in the world to think that precious lady just disappeared from the face of the earth and nobody knew. And here she said, oh, I got married, I've been on horseback, and we had this wonderful ranch.
They raised llamas too.
But a little more history about Alice to me that I thought was unbelievable. She was for years had never married. She was an old maid. But it was tremendous.
What do you call a man, old man?
Old man.
Thank you.
But
I can erase that, Steve.
in the church that she was involved with, she was very good friends of a family, and they were an older couple, and she took care of him when the wife died, and they married. This was years ago.
She was 47 when she first got married.
So Linda,
She was 47 when she first got married.
And didn't you know a girl that lived next door? And
Yeah. I knew a girl that next door.
you've known her for years.
We had a Christmas card from her every year. What's her name?
but
She was Sandy McGuire.
This is the one that, okay. Brought in the milkshake. She brought in the milkshake, right?
No, that's the preacher's daughter.
How old is Ellis? Is she like 78?
Oh, she's 87.
2 years younger than I am.
Okay, so she's 80.
no, I was 93.
No, she called her age.
At our house last November, she recited poetry. She did. She had a long talk with us about Russell.
She said she had a,
She's
She
sweet.
was a tremendous caring.
I can remember, we went to visit you all one time, this is, you know, it was the only time we've ever been to visit you in Monette, and David and I was in high school, David was maybe in 6th grade, and Kelly Pat and Tim were whatever age, and you took us to Springfield, and Kelly Pat and Tim and David and I were just dreading it, we were like, we have to go sit in these people's house while our parents talked, and we just sat there just miserable, because we didn't understand, that age, we didn't really, I just remember sitting there, we all wanted to
Jill,
be.
Tim, you had been with me several times when you were at the Owens. Didn't you go with me to Ellis's house?
Yeah, Ruth went there, Alice went there.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Well, yeah,
Well-
I mean, if I had been older, I would have appreciated it, but at that age, we wanted to go to, I remember we wanted to go to Walmart or something, there was some store we wanted to
But
go
you
to.
loved it last November.
Yeah, last November, I just really, she was
I'd say she's one of the most sweet-spirited persons I've
What,
The only bad habit she has is that dog.
We had been to
She had that
Mariella's
little
wedding.
chihuahua.
Remember they brought him out to Camp Storyhock and he sat in Wes's lap the whole time?
Yeah, that chihuahua.
Tim and I took care of that dog.
I remember that dog.
Tim and I babysat that dog.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Looked like a mouse on
Yeah.
steroids.
Taking care of the dog?
Back to the question.
I want to make sure though, but Alice now is who? Poppy's sister's one of,
First cousin to the three over here. Like you and I, right?
oh, no. And Annie's
His
dog.
last marriage was his son King. And
Really?
when she was driving this
Not
car
watching this
somewhere
now.
to visit another city. And when they got home, he said, why don't we go together? And so by golly, they did, and he wanted her to marry him. And he's got a farm, he owned an airplane, she said, oh, we'll come down and see you. And who did she go see?
Ken Rush, and she went to Carol Williams.
I said, Alice, you mean you only visited him a week and you got married? She says, at my age, you don't have much time to think about it.
But she had known him.
You gotta make those decisions real fast.
Yeah, she,
Yeah, not much,
yeah.
just a little bit.
I thought it was like 10 years.
No,
And Eddie, if you ever meet her, you'll be her long lost relative. She'll show loving, tender interest in anything.
Yeah, 'cause I just, I met her that one time and she didn't take care of that.
Yeah, and then they came in the next day for breakfast, and that's when Alice stood up
We went to,
in our kitchen and recited all this poetry.
we went to Cracker Barrel when supper was in, remember?
I didn't go.
I would like, because I don't think everybody knows what Poppy did, and I think that's kind of interesting. You all could share what he did and how he supported the family and what work he did in New Orleans.
He was superintendent of employees at this big department store. He did all the hiring and all the firing.
What was it called, Granny?
Maison
Maison
Blanche.
Blanche.
And
Greatest
he
store south it was called.
Do you remember any of the stories that Poppy used to tell about when he would confront shoplifters?
Mhm. Well, he was in charge of protecting the store. He had one woman that was fantastic. She was a shopper. She would dress like an average person shopping. In any department that found something suspicious would call for, what was her name? And we knew her well. Yeah.
Well, that was one of them.
Yeah. But in that, she would go and begin shopping in an area where they were suspecting some theft. And by God, she doesn't get out the store and grab them by the arm and say, she was terrific.
She was a house detective.
Yeah, she was a house detective, yeah. And she'd bring them to Palm. I mean,
And Palmer would save her.
he any number.
That's right.
Mama was trying to say something a while ago, something about going to Mariella's wedding.
Granny was?
Everybody was talking.
We get the
We
religion
went to
crowd here.
Marielle and Reggie's wedding, and we were on the way back, and we stopped to see Ella, and she knew we were coming. She was expecting us. She didn't have one cake, she didn't have two cakes. She had about 7. She had all
This was
kinds.
Leslie Stevens' home, where she was
No,
married.
no,
Before she married him?
before she married.
Okay.
What did like Poppy's friends call him? They call him William?
Really.
Willie?
Bill. He was Bill.
If you look at that poster over there, there's a card that Poppy gave to Mama. It says, to my dear wife, and there's a saying in the card, and it says, love, Billy. So that was maybe an endearing term.
She always called him Willie.
Willie, I thought she called him Willie.
He kept this little framed saying, and a lot of you may have already heard it at different occasions under different circumstances, but it says, his mother called him Willie, his father called him Will. The girls all called him Willie with an L there, tell him Bill. And he loved that. He loved to be called Bill.
I thought it was called Phil.
Let me,
But he amazingly hired all the sales girls, and Maison and store and department store in New Orleans, and it was considered one of the largest in the South. They were a general stores chain, and he made as much as $75 a week when he was raising us, and that was, but he never. It seemed like it never changed, it wasn't much money, but we always had clean clothes and neat clothes.
We always got a discount on what we bought.
And he always said the girls the cutest dresses.
Organdy, I couldn't stand to wear them.
Or
They were organdy and they were pretty.
I would like to tell you two special memories I have of my daddy. He started a devotional period, what do you call it, in Maison Blanche. He often led it himself, and he invited other people in to conduct it. And I didn't realize it. While I was attending LSU, he was invited to speak to a business class, and I was, in my heart, I was unhappy because I wasn't invited. I didn't know he was going to be there. But he told me later that he had been there. And because of his influence with Maison Blanche and his friends in the trucking department, in the delivery department, my laundry was carried home by a Maison Blanche truck each week. My mother got to do my laundry. But the other memory I have was him as a Presbyterian elder. He took us to prayer meeting every Wednesday night when we were children, and later when we'd visit there, we'd go to prayer. But one of the things he helped to start was a program at the Warrington home for indigent men, and Mr. Warrington was living then, and we'd often go out as a group with Dr. Summer when he was available, and later Dr. Roberts, Reverend Mr. Roberts before he became doctor, and had these services for these men. And different one, he would often speak, but different one, and often the minister would be the one to bring the program. But we went along with it. And then one more thing, he got Leonard and me to become missionaries to the Chinese. We went up Sunday afternoon to help the Chinese boys from the Chinese mission, which was not where, in the big church where it is now. But we would go and help Chinese boys to read the New Testament. They'd read a passage and we'd read and help correct them. But we went because we enjoyed, we'd walk up there. Where was it? But after we had our lessons, we'd go out on the field and play touch football with our friends from the Chinese mission. The Chinese mission became a great institution, and they had a pastor, Don Castleman, who really, and I regret that I haven't been able to visit since then, but that's another memory I had of him. Oh, and visitation evangelism. I think mainly when Dr. Roberts came, he was very enthusiastically engaged in making calls, personal evangelism. I went with my daddy, I went with Dr. Roberts, and I went with other young men. I don't know whether I went with Leonard, but with Walter Bailey and one or two or three of the other boys. But we had terrific experience in visitation, which helped me in my ministry much later. So, amen.
I can tell you this, Leonard very often was at odds with my dad.
I can't believe that. I refuse.
Closing exercises for Deloteus Bible School. And there was different classes what to participate in. You see the Bible verse. Leonard got up and he repeated the verse, I and my Father are one. And everybody nearly in a fit.
Let me say one thing about the Vacation Bible School, started by Dr. David Worth Roberts. This was the first daily vacation Bible school ever held in the city of New Orleans. And the priests would come from the different neighborhoods, stand on the corner of Broad and Esplanade and try to stop the Roman Catholic kids from coming, because a few would slip in and want to come. But he had a program of handling, and they gave, Dr. Roberts gave a prize, and the first year, Lenny won 1 year, and I won 1 year.
I don't remember you. No, but I was lucky. We had wooden horses with boards across, and every boy had a coping saw, a hammer, and one other, maybe a screwdriver. And we would make things during the week. And luckily, I liked it. And I did win 1 year of what's the Scout knife. And then the next year, I won a Scout hatchet. I still have it in the post. And Palmer, I think, stole the knife. And I used to get in trouble with A.J. Bertrand. I mean, and we used to go swimming in the Bayou St. John. We didn't ask for permission because my dad wouldn't have permitted it. But I'd keep a pair of swimming trunks at his house, and he lived near the bayou. And I'll never forget, I had gotten a pocket watch that I had won too, big old, what do you call it, band? One of the old big pocket watches. At any rate, and I went swimming and lost my watch. And then I had a time, excuse me.
I just wanted to, one thing. You did say you did some things without asking permission and just went and did things?
Never.
I can't believe it.
I don't know where you get it.
This is really shocking. I'm heartbroken. I'm crushed.
Ray's got a scorecard over there.
Keep talking. This is fun.
Do y'all remember Juanita or Ma Mare was your grandmother, and you said she had to put her children into a foster home or an orphanage for a while. Had her husband died, and she just couldn't take care of them.
We never did know. I didn't ever hear anything about it. Never knew anything. Never did hear any knowledge.
All the kids stayed together in the foster home?
No. But we became friendly with the woman who had, what was her name? She was always delighted that he'd bring us over to see her. Tolerant.
What was the name?
Tolerant. T-O-L-I-V-E-R.
Thank you.
No, that was the name of the, what Jeannie Tamazak was.
So you just didn't have any knowledge at all of.
Now, was Juanita her name, you said?
Memes.
That was her, okay.
And was Deloteus her maiden name or her married name?
Her married name.
Her married name.
She was a Cargo. I think that was her maiden name, Cargo.
Cargo? C-A-R-V?
D-O-L.
So,
That's it. Let me ask you this. You all have been to Poppy's grave.
What?
Grandma's grave.
yeah, it is. It really is.
There are a list of names on that tombstone, about 6 or 7. What is the name of the cemetery where they're buried, first off? Just for the record.
Canal Street.
Menlo Cemetery where they're buried.
What's the name of the cemetery? Barbara and I have found it one time and found the grave site, but boy, it took us half a day to do it.
We're asking for you now, but it'll make it easy for us.
That's what we're trying, what's the name of the graveyard?
Is it the Metairie?
Saint something. Saint something.
St. Anne's?
It's right at the end of that circle there.
It's right at the end.
The left.
Canal Street where it comes into.
And it's the left one on the first one on the left,
You
actually.
go out Canal Street from downtown.
Now the last cemetery on the right.
If anybody cares, I do have in our slide collection, slides taken every step of the way to that gravestone, so you can find it.
So you just got to take a view camera down there with us?
I just took that thing with me right there. Oh, the slides. If anybody's ever interested in finding that, like that.
Let's.
But who are the names on that headstone? There are 7 or 8 names on the headstone.
Mostly.
Was it Corky?
That was for my
All right.
There's more than one in the.
Yeah, the way it happens is there's marsh underneath the cemetery, and they just put a casket in, and it sinks down over time, and then when it's time to bury somebody else, they put another casket in, and it continues to sink into the marsh.
It didn't disintegrate. That's why they didn't want anybody to put metal or caskets. They wanted you to use a wooden casket so that it would disintegrate and you could keep putting more people on top because of the sea level.
Didn't want to give up the sail on it, so it's floating.
That's why there's so many humans buried above ground. I mean, because it's a low level.
Finish up again. I think we probably went through it all, but I think Poppy's siblings and children. But what about Mama's siblings?
Well, that was the Keeper's family.
Right.
She had two sisters,
The brother who was a fighter.
She had the.
Aunt Carrie. Aunt Carrie.
Oh, and Aunt Josie, sure.
Aunt Josie.
Sure.
Aunt Josie had the biggest heart of anybody you've ever met.
And can sure fix red beans and rice.
Yeah. And didn't care how many people came over.
something about Sunday afternoons at Aunt Josie.
Yeah, that was Grandma Geeker, Sunday afternoon.
And Aunt Josie.
I never gone to Aunt Josie.
Aunt Josie took over after Grandma Geeker's
Well,
death.
tell us first about Grandma Geeker Sunday and then.
On Sunday, well, you were out of town, I guess, living in Kentucky. We would all go on Sunday afternoons, and they would make hot tea and used not regular milk, condensed milk to sweeten and call the tea. And
And had an agate pot, about that tall. And that, they would make that old black tea.
and she made
Grandma made it.
She put her hand and she used it for anybody who could come and just visit.
Didn't know what mayonnaise was back then. Put 10 pounds of butter on each piece of bread.
But when they made maple soup on Christmas and New Year, all the family would gather together. It was terrific. And they'd get fresh turtle meat from the French market.
Turtle? And my aunt would say, it's the Cowan turtle. Be sure it's the Cowan turtle. And Josie.
Really. And then they would take me once or twice Christmas dinner, because I didn't eat turtle, so they gave me my bowl.
So you had Aunt Josie, Aunt Carrie, which I remember very well, but then they had the brother Red was the boxer brother. And who was the other brother? Louis, Uncle.
Uncle Louis was the one that wanted us to be jockeys. He lived at the racetrack.
Uncle Louis is smoking cigars too.
His wife was at Minnie's.
Many. And so there were five total siblings.
Yeah.
And how many children? And I mean, do you all know much about their children and grandchildren?
And Josie was the eldest. She had one son. And then Aunt Carrie.
What was his name?
Buster. Renee Dutrush.
What's he called Buster?
And,
No. What about how many children do they have?
Buster,
Yeah,
he, had one daughter.
one daughter.
What was Buster's daughter's name?
She can't remember.
Judy?
That was not his daughter.
That was his stepdaughter.
Stepdaughter.
More food. Food, that's what we're here for. All these stories are just a little bit of a side issue to this food.
Yeah, Aunt Josie was the oldest. Who was the second oldest? Aunt Carrie. And how many children did she have?
One son.
Mel was his
My
name.
age.
No.
That was Mel.
And I still, most of the time, will call Melville and Tootie, Herman, who was Aunt Minnie's daughter. And once or twice, we made a room and went to lunch with them.
Aunt Minnie's daughter. Who's Minnie?
Minnie was the wife of one of the Beaver's boys.
Okay. And what was her name? What's the last name?
Amon.
A-M-M-O-N.
Buka, Amon, and Tootie.
Aunt Minnie was, we always call her Tootie. Hermione was her name.
Tutti frutti.
Okay, so after Aunt Carrie, who was after that?
Mama.
Okay, Mama.
How many children did she have?
I don't know.
Just kidding. I got onto that part of the story.
She was young.
Well, where was Louis? Was Louis older than?
3 girls and 2 boys.
Okay, where were the boys fitting?
Hey.
Red boy.
What were
Go
the
through it
boys'
again.
names and where did they fit in the age hierarchy?
Red was where?
He was the youngest.
He was the youngest.
Below Memo. Where was
Well,
Louis?
he was around, I don't know if he's younger than Memo, he was the youngest son.
Where in the chronology?
Was Louis just under the memo?
Louis, no, he was older.
Who was he older than or younger than?
He was the oldest.
He was the firstborn?
He was the oldest child.
Okay, Louis was the firstborn. Where did Red come in?
He was about 4.
He was young.
Okay, now, Louis was married to who? And Minnie. And their kids were? Tootie, just the one.
Just the one.
They just almost all had one, it sounds like?
Except for Memo.
Except for Memo.
She had trouble with Poppy, so she had 3.
But the others had just one. Buster was one, Melville was one, and Tootie.
Those were 3 children with 3 different parents.
Did they have any Giefers children that kept carrying on that name? Did the Giefers boys have Giefers sons?
Uncle Raymond had 2 sons.
Do you know if they?
One conversation, please, so we can hear.
What's the title?
Gee, he whiz.
He was asking whether any Giefers boy.
Tell my dad.
There were no Giefer grandchildren to carry on the Giefer name. There were girl children that got married and changed their names.
Anybody like a cheaper?
He had 2 sons, Uncle Raymond. And,
Who's Raymond?
That's me, Bill.
The older brother of Memo.
Red Dover.
The youngest brother, He is Red Dover.
Okay, that's Raymond.
Raymond had 2 sons, and they both were champion amateur boxers.
What did Ray get his?
Raymond?
Raymond?
Where did he get his name?
I got number 2 attached to me.
Who's the one I nearly killed?
That's what I was going to say. With all the gun safety that I know,
Louis.
I was gonna ask who was the pistol packing person in the family.
What did you do, get hold of him?
Well, we were playing at Aunt Josie's one of those Sunday afternoons. We were all there. Judy, Trish, and Linda and I were there. I think Nelsie was not in this act at the time. We were playing hide and seek in the house. But you know how Aunt Josie's second room had the bed angled diagonally?
Oh, yes.
And Uncle Louis was sitting in a rocking chair like that, right on the other side of that archway door. And we were just playing. We did not know, and we had no idea. We'd never seen a real gun. So we saw this gun between the mattress and the springs. And we said, oh, look, she has a toy here, funny place for a toy. So Linda or Judy, I don't know who pulled it out, and they said, I can't even pull the trigger. And I tried and couldn't pull it, and I said, I'm going to try again. And with that, I pulled, and it shot off, knocked me back. The gun went up, and that far above Uncle Louis's head, the bullet was still in the wall the day Aunt Josie was
Scared the
there.
hell out of Uncle Louis, though.
Uncle Louis nearly swallowed a cigar. Smoke. And Poppy came screaming through the house at me. I thought he was going to kill me because I had almost shot Uncle Louis like I intended to do it.
Well, you had to know Uncle Louis.
Yeah. It was the scariest day of my life.
More scared of Poppy than the many other
I was scared of Poppy.
She's been a good Christian.
They
since
took
that
up for me.
How old were you, Bill?
Oh, we were little. I mean, it's when we lived in New Orleans. I was probably 3 or 4.
and I remember
Oh, I had to be older because you were there. You were maybe 2 and I was 6.
they never included me in any of their fun games.
You were a sparkle in your father's eye, right?
I wasn't even close to a sparkle at that point. What?
I heard that story, but we were never allowed to talk about it.
You all took me outside immediately because I was hysterical.
I believe it was a 45 caliber.
Oh, it was.
number 4.
I just want to know who you voted for. All 5 of you.
Abraham
Oh,
Lincoln.
dear.
There was a political party in New Orleans that were called the Old Regulars. And it was a real strong party, and all of our uncles were very strong. And man, if they thought, and I didn't vote with the Old Regulars, they'd have put me out of the family. And but I never did fool with any of them. And we voted for who we thought was the best. But then that was a terrible era for New Orleans, when the Old Regulars really ran the city. But it wasn't Republican, it wasn't Democrat, it was the Old Regulars.
So who'd you vote for? First time.
Who,
Do you remember Uncle Palmer? I think Uncle Palmer.
My daddy took me downtown to the city hall that was on the square where the old First Presbyterian Church used to be, and signed me up for my first poll tax. Pay my whatever it was, and that's the first time I ever had to vote. And I never voted until after I married.
When did Huey Long come into the picture? It was during our late teens.
Nobody remembers who you voted for? Remember Palmer? Maybelle, do you remember?
Who I voted for.
Who'd you vote? Alma, do you
I
remember?
voted for Roosevelt twice, and I decided that was long enough for any president. That's when I became political. Of course, I'm older than, especially younger than anybody. But, no, but he pointed his finger at me.
Yeah.
I didn't know kind of excuse.
Yeah.
Did I, right?
that's right. So we have one Roosevelt.
Delano Roosevelt, right?
Yes, and I think that was the last time I voted for a Democrat, if you want to know.
Grandma, do you remember?
What was your political affiliation? The over. What?
I'm a Democrat.
I got to edit the film quick.
Yeah, I was going to.
Second gunshot of the family.
She votes right most of the time.
I always voted
When I went to,
Oh, I didn't vote for Clinton.
when I went to Bowling Green, you know, it wasn't easy to register other than a Democrat.
That's right.
And I made sure, after a few years, and I thought I was wasting my time and should give credit to the Republican Party for my interest. And I went down and changed my, and I said, if I ever hear you all, I later became an officer representing the Republican Party on the state, what do they call it?
Caucus?
The
State committee.
committee on elections and so forth. And I told them at the hall, I got to know them all real well. And then, but I said, if I ever catch any evidence of you all trying to get somebody swayed to vote Democratic, I said, you're going to be in the worst trouble you ever saw. But we had a lot of fun with it, and we got along real well. And then got 2 extra years on her handicap sticker. But,
Real politics.
But they used to be very strong influencing people to vote and tell them you couldn't, you lose your vote if you don't register Democrat.
Top Orendorff. Top Orendorff.
What about it?
He was so strict about registering.
But when I was against the Irish Democrats, that's the only way you could vote. Didn't have any count because there wasn't nobody ever ran the Republican primary much.
That was their story.
Yeah, I moved to Tennessee, you didn't declare any affiliation at all. That's been great.
Now, do we have a question and answer period?
No. Sure. World War II, what do you all?
Who are you for?
What
were you doing during the war?
We know the way Dot was for.
Yeah, that's right.
And Dot's dad,
Oh, yeah, I want to hear this story with the Colonel.
when he finished World War I, he was a lieutenant and stayed in the National Guard between between that time and the Second World War, and he advanced himself in chemical warfare. And when he became a lawyer, he became attached to the legal system. That it was only during war that you had a D5, which is an area where they were looking for government and people to take over the management of cities after they were captured. But he was very, and lived at Jackson Barracks, and that's where I courted Dot, and lived way at the end of the streetcar line. And sometimes I'd go down on the streetcar and visit her. But what was the question?
Well, I'll add to what you're going with there. Wasn't he mayor of a city in France?
Crowley, Louisiana.
No, in France.
No, in France. Wasn't he a military mayor?
St. Louis.
St. Louis, okay, which was in the drop zone of World War.
That's on Normandy.
Yeah, it's right behind Normandy.
He went over and he crossed the channel with the drive over to the beach.
The D-Day invasion.
But he was sent back to the United States because goiter in his neck and high blood pressure. And when he got into the harbor in
Fort Dix, New Jersey.
right, he had a heart attack.
No, he didn't.
Not a stroke. That's stroke. And was crippled from there on.
Yeah, I remember he wore a brace.
Yeah.
What was the thing?
Mom Pugh was amazing.
He was 52 years old.
52.
And he had a stroke and he lived to be 65.
Well, I mean, that's,
And she drove him all over the country. And when they'd come to our house, I would try to help him put on the shoes and shave and do things. She said, Lenny, I don't you do that, because you expect me to do that. But she really was good for him. Made him, he would walk across the highway when they lived on the Gulf Coast. She was a gutsy person, still is.
now what about Crowley? Is that where they lived, or was, that's Crowley, Louisiana?
I was born in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Dad was in the service, and Mom came home to help me. I grew up in Crowley till I was 11. We moved to New Orleans. Dad was mayor of Crowley, lost the election, and Mom persuaded him with 3 children to go back to law school, which we did.
Came to New Orleans.
Bob was 9 months old. We were Milladine.
Now, you're a lawyer also. Was. And, just like being an elder, you're never a was, you're always an is.
Were you one of the first women to go to Tulane Law School?
There were only 2 in her class. She had
There was one of them in my class, but there was some before me and some after me. Now they say more than half the students are women.
Sure, but the stuff is coming to.
Did you want to go?
Well,
Or did they just sort of push you?
no, they didn't push me at all. I was a math major. I was taking solid analytical geometry, which I knew nothing about. And I was, in my senior year, would have to take comprehensive exams, all the math I had taken all through 3 years of it. So my mom said, well, why don't you go to law school, and at the end of the year, you get your BA. If you don't like it, you don't have to go. So I liked it, and I stayed.
Did you ever work in the profession?
A little bit in New Orleans, but I would have had to take the bar in
That's
Kentucky.
Doug Grissom. Doug didn't eat dinner with us tonight. He went
So
to
we have 2
Taco Bell.
lawyers in the family, whoever we were having that
He didn't
discussion.
join in the family fun. More with
Aunt
Doug
Maibelle.
later.
What school did you go to?
Well, I went to several along the way. I went in the summers to a school, a teacher's college in San Marcos, Texas. My mother had started supporting her family when she was 16 by taking tests, and she was determined that all of us were going to have an education so that we could teach or take care of ourselves if such a thing happened to us. So I graduated from high school when I was 15 and started going to summer school. Went to summer school three summers in San Marcos. I went to Trinity University, which is a Presbyterian school. It was a small one at that time in Waxahachie, Texas, and now it's a large one in San Antonio. went there a year and a half. I really did not want to be there. I wanted to be in San Marcos the whole time. I liked the atmosphere, everything about it. And so after a year and a half there, I was allowed to change back to San Marcos, and I graduated. I did it in 3 years during summer and winter. So I graduated from school in San Marcos and became a teacher, and I had majored in math. The registrar of the school was my advisor, and he called me in and he said, I know you have majored in math, you like math, you have done well in practice teaching, you have done most of it without even the teacher being in the room because they could depend on you. But I have had a letter, he said, I've had 6 schools say, we want a teacher, but don't send us a teenager. We want a mature person. Don't send us, one of them said, don't send us a kid. Well, it happened that my name was Maibelle Kidd, and it happened that the registrar's name was Mr. Kidd. We were not related. He said, I think I shall write to this school and say, I know you said you did not want a KID, but I'd like to recommend someone to you whose name is KIDD and sign his name KIDD. He said it won't do any good, but I'll have a sense of humor and have fun about it. I couldn't get a job teaching math in high school. So on my mother's reputation as a teacher of first grade, I was able to teach in a small school near the town where we were living. And I'd go home every weekend and she'd tell me what to do with these little children. I really was at a loss. I did not really relate to little children naturally. I had been the little child. See, my parents were 40 years old when I was born. So I taught school there for 3 years. Then I applied again for a math job, and the response was, I had to go see all the, what do you call them, trustees in the school. That's the way they did it then when you made an application. The superintendent wanted me to teach in that school because one time he and his wife ran out of gas, and my father, who was a doctor, came by and siphoned gas out of his car and gave it to them. So they remembered him, so they attached me to him. And he wanted me in the school, I think simply on the basis of the gasoline. And anyway, he knew ahead of time that these people that I went to see were going not to approve me. And after the 5th one asked me the same question, which was, well, what do you think you do with the football team? I forgot all this I had learned from my parents about respect for my elders, and I said, well, I feel pretty sure I would do a better job with your football team than your football coach is going to do with math, but you have to settle on your own priorities. And I didn't go see the other two. And so I was told by the superintendent that he wanted me to teach art. They had lost their art teacher. I said, but I don't know anything about art. I can't teach art. He said, I like your penmanship, and I can tell by talking with you and looking at you that you will make a good art teacher. The old art teacher is here. She will help you. They did not have courses of study. I wanted to be that near my father. That place was near him because I had been away from him a lot, you know, in school and all. I'd been around my mother more. Anyway, the 3 of us lived in the town where I taught for 2 years. And I taught art, and that's when I became interested in crafts and art and had all this hidden talent.
Well, now hold it.
That's
Have
enough.
you ever heard of a place called the Chicken Ranch?
Chicken Ranch? That's the town I was born in.
How long did you work at the Chicken Ranch?
I was too young. Some of the people here don't know what the Chicken Ranch is. Now, you know what it is, so you describe it. I don't know. I was too young to know.
How many know what the Chicken Ranch is? How many saw the play of the musical, The Best on the Courthouse in Texas?
Oh.
That's the Chicken Ranch.
Oh, no.
I just want to know, on my film, this is Billy Cartwright. He's the only cousin. He's the only cousin that keeps me from getting in as much trouble as I do.
I want to tell a story about the
Yeah, okay.
church.
Let me tell you.
Okay.
There were a couple of nuns that were traveling from Notre Dame down to a little city.
You ever hear of Hubbard City?
Wait a minute.
I want to watch them scrap just once for the old time's sake.
But anyway, these nuns nuns were traveling by car out of the city to do something related to what they do. And here they ran out of gas. And right in the middle of the highway. And they got out and had the gas tank open and didn't know what to do. And a car stopped by to help them. And said, well, I'll go get you some gas, but I don't have any containers to carry. So they got some bedpans out. and they took them down and filled them with gas. And here the two nuns were standing in the back of the car, pouring out of the bedpan in a car that said, "Isn't that safe?"
Obviously, true story.
Hubbard City.
Oliver said that Maibelle was born in Hubbard City, and it's famous.
Because I was born there.
She was born there, but also Tris Speaker. Pat watched play ball when he was a little boy in that town. But Tris Speaker, according to sports news and records, made the highest salary up to Babe Ruth. Next highest salary to Babe Ruth. The highest salary that was ever paid to anybody until Babe Ruth came along. And that's why Hubbard City is famous.
Not because of me at all.
There's one thing I want to regress a second with Poppy and the boxing. And I remember Ron and I used to go to the boxing matches on Wednesday night, was it?
Yeah. No, that was Wednesday night.
Church night.
It was Monday night or Tuesday night.
Whatever night we went.
It was Saturday night. That's really.
When I was working for the New Orleans Idol,
I just wanted to ask, this is a question, and it's a loaded question, because I think I know the answer. But was there any peculiarities about Poppy and when you watched boxers of different races?
Oh gosh, he wouldn't watch.
He wouldn't let my mother stay in the room.
But any time when they began fighting blacks, he turned the TV on. And he didn't think that they should be in the ring. And he was very emphatic about it and wouldn't dare.
This is the racial side of our family.
Well, it's a different time, you know.
No.
Were there not black boxers and
Well,
live boxers?
the story that I remember with Poppy was that he would watch two black men fight, or he would watch two white men fight, but he wouldn't watch a black and a white fight. That's the story I remember.
Even if you were there, would you have to leave if it was black?
They never had that when we were there.
Oh, they never had.
He wouldn't have gone.
No, you know, true. They know ahead of time.
He knew what the fight card was.
Yeah, that's true.
Grammy, what were some of the, you used to tell me he would tip people. Poppy would, like, if you saw a black man, he would tip him or something like that?
Well, he never happened of doing that, thinking he was gonna help somebody.
I can remember him tipping all the waiters at Deloteus Family.
Let me ask you if you can verify
Why wouldn't that, James?
this story that I remember that Poppy told me one time years ago. It was during World War I, and the troops were marching through New Orleans. And he would go up and...
That's the Civil War, Bill.
He would go up to the soldiers in this column and say, would you like me to go buy you a sandwich or buy you a drink or a beer at those markets running along this road? And they would give him money, and he would go buy the stuff for them and bring it back to them, you know, while they marched along. And one time he was doing that, and that morning he had found a 4-leaf clover. And he had this 4-leaf clover in his pocket, and the soldier gave him a $20 bill. And when he went back to find the soldier, he never found the soldier. He ran up and down, you know, and never found the soldier, and ended up, you know, with the $20 bill and the food and whatever, you know. But is that story, you ever heard that story? Anybody else want to make up a story about Poppy?
I got a few good ones. Let me have a shot.
He's got one about Poppy.
Yeah, I talked to him one time.
I was going, when did I miss that?
We all know, I mean, all the grandkids know how Poppy was famous for finding 40 clovers. That was a big thing about being with Poppy when the fresh spring grass are all summer. You know, you'd go out and look for 4-leaf clovers.
He gave you $1 for it.
No, he could find them.
I got dollars.
He would walk over to the truck and pick up a 4-leaf clover, and you could have looked there for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Let Jimmy have the floor now. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Take them in and put them in a book and
Yeah.
save them, press them, and I don't know, they're probably still in books someplace. We had tons of, what do you call it?
How did Poppy and Mama meet?
That's a good question.
Stump the panel.
And the bingo game was Catholic Church.
She was just 18 and he was 5
Did you
years
see her
old.
waist in that picture?
And I really don't know how they met. But I know my mother quit school at, I think, 13. She regretted the rest of her life.
But she could read and write. I mean, she was.
Yes.
And well, Poppy did go beyond, what was it, 5th grade, 6th grade, or something. And I was following in their footsteps. I didn't get to go to college, but I courted Dot all through law school. I used to take classes at Western, at Tulane in commercial studies, marketing and accounting and stuff. And she would find occasion to stay and study in the law library, and I would pick her up after my class and take her off to Jackson Barrett's home. Many times. And that was a good long ride.
Yeah, but you hold into the car, man, like, so you go by fast.
And you worked for a motor company for a number of years.
You're asking for some serious memory there.
This is probably Alma's birthday party. August 7th, what?
Yes, but I don't make any birthday.
Oh.
Mama, what were you doing, remember?
What was the question, please?
When the atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki or Hiroshima, Hiroshima was August 7th, Nagasaki was August 9th.
I think we were living in Texas, but I'm not quite sure.
More prominent when war was declared.
I remember we were in VJ.
Go back to December 7th and 41.
Yeah.
41.
Japanese
I don't remember. I remember the time, but I don't remember what I was doing. I know I was shocked. Everybody was, I suppose. But I don't remember what I was doing.
What were you doing when Kennedy was assassinated?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little easier to recall.
When what?
President Kennedy was assassinated.
I was on my way back from Montreal with, what was his name? The executive presbytery. We had attended a meeting in Atlanta. No, I said Montreal. It was Atlanta, church extension meeting. And we heard it in the car, and we were on our way home, and he came to our house, and we listened to the radio. Everybody was concerned. And that was it. He went back to his family. We were in his car.
Who were you talking about?
What were we talking about?
Who was he?
John F. Kennedy.
No.
In the car.
With T.G. Golden, he was the executive of that presbytery.
I think his name J.F. Austin. J.F. Austin.
What about the rest of it?
I was at home waiting for them to come home, and I heard it, and it was sort of a devastating thing. So I can't remember what I did, but Ariel, did you remember?
Oh, yeah. There were kids, I was in Austin College then, only 60 miles from where it happened. There were kids on our campus who just had breakfast with us.
I don't know how many of you all remember Huey P. Long. The younger generation don't remember much, but I went to LSU. I had told my dad that I planned to go, and I was leaving on a bus on Monday morning. Sunday afternoon, we got news of the assassination, not the assassination, but the hitting of him with gun. He went to the hospital in Baton Rouge, across from the river, LSU. And I went on the bus as a freshman, registered as a freshman at LSU. And his son, Russell P. Long, who later became a senator, was president of our freshman class, sophomore class, junior class, and the student body. And a roommate of mine, Razor Blades, Charlie Razor Blades, ran for president against Huey P. Long. And I went to a dance on Saturday night in the gymnasium, and Rose Long, Russell's sister, Huey's daughter, was there. They had big publicity in the Reveille, the paper, the newspaper, the campus paper, about Long, and they were having a famous band leader who was playing for our dance, and they made him retract that he was for Huey Long, Russell Long. And later I was a classmate in English of Rose Long, and later I went to her wedding at the First Presbyterian Church, and she married a man who became head of a hospital in Alexandria, Louisiana. Political gift, of course. And Russell Long, the son of Huey, and I were inducted into Corps d'Armée, an honorary organization on campus. It had no real merit to it, but it was interesting. I got to know Russell P. Long personally, who later became the senator succeeding.
Now, did you drink beer in those days?
Palmer used to. Did you drink beer in those days?
Did you drink beer in those days?
Did you drink beer in those days?
when I was in ROTC, they tried to get me to go to the Sunday afternoon beer bus, and I ran like everything down the slanting from the stadium. I stayed on room 414 and went to the Prestige Student Center. The next 3 years I lived at the Student Center, and I was one of the few that didn't touch the beer on the campus.
But he had worked his way
But I was on a fishing trip in Bay St. Louis with this old minister, Dr. George Summers, which will ring a bell with several of you. And we got up early. We was one young girl that Dr. Summers was a neighbor, and also she became his ward when her parents died. And her aunt and uncle had a drugstore up there on the beach, and we would go over and stay at their house. He would have arrangements made. We'd go fishing that afternoon when we got there. And so then we'd get up early the next morning, and we'd go fishing again. And we were going the next morning on the beach, and here out of ballroom, swinging doors, came a man just crying. Huey Long's been shot.
Do you all follow the latest evidence on that assassination? That it really wasn't assassinated by that young Jewish fellow? That he was actually shot by his own guard? And they've been able to prove that pretty much conclusively now?
I've read something.
Yeah.
I can remember going to visit Grandma and Papi, and Papi would drink beer and sit his medicine.
Yeah, Jack.
But he wouldn't dare let his wife drink beer or have a drink, or he would fix me one, but he would let her have it. But Aunt Josie and Mama were good friends, and they were within walking distance, and they would buy Limburger cheese and split a beer in the afternoon.
Oh, I never heard that. And Puppy didn't know that, but you.
No.
The Limburger.
Oh,
Yeah.
he couldn't smell the Limburger cheese. Mama would have to hide it and wrap it and do all that.
But they'd sneak, Aunt Josie would come walk over about 10 blocks.
Isn't that what everybody put in Bill and Barbara's car? And they were with.
Not everybody, your dad.
My dad. It's done.
I remember you going to your car.
Yeah, well, it was your dad.
Yeah.
But
Did Poppy, do you ever remember seeing Poppy hug Mama? I never saw him hug her. Did he ever hug you and Alma?
They hugged 3 times.
A little.
But not much really, huh?
You know, he wouldn't ever let Mama wear makeup,
Yeah.
and he didn't want me to wear makeup.
That was probably a good rule.
I was about 17, and I was going to school. I had to take a streetcar to go to normal school. But in fact, if I let
They
my-
went to abnormal. No.
Oh, a little getting nasty over there.
I wanted to wear makeup. I think I was about 17 or 18, and he didn't want wanted me to wear makeup. So I put a little lipstick on, and we were going out the door. I brought so far with it to Maison Blanche. Then I'd get out of the car, and I would walk 10 blocks to normal school. Sometimes, if I were late, I would take a streetcar. But he wouldn't drive me all the way. He'd take me as far as Maison Blanche. But I was going out the door, and he said, "Do you have lipstick on?" I said, "That's my Curacao."
When Poppy died, the first thing Mama wanted was to stick to lipstick. Because he would never let her wear lipstick, and she always wanted to. And I think you went and got it.
That's the first thing she wanted after Papi died was lipstick.
First thing was
second thing was beer.
Mom blasted me. Blasted. I started out winning. I was like 25 points ahead. Then she came back and let me out of the water. Yeah. Hell, you never played? No. Okay, we'll get into it. I don't want to play a lot.
You'll get like the lady. I'll take that. Really?
I'm gonna bring Mama a couple of gourds. Raisins and apricots.
Hey. How are you? I'm gonna get some more cheeseburgers.
We knew you could put it on your Smith account work. Oh, sure. Everything else, so.
How many sisters does Poppy have? One sister.
Annie.
Annie.
How many brothers? You were two brothers. How does Felix die? How did Felix die? Nashville is famous for is the Grand Ole Opry. And the Grand Ole Opry's oldest sponsor is the Standard Candy Company. Standard Candy Company makes Goo candy clusters. Yay! And we brought them to share with you all.
Yay!
So, we have 2 boxes for this play to go around. Everybody please get at least one.
Thank you, Barb. Thanks, Bob. You didn't say one or one box.
Now, Phyllis wants to share something with us. It is said that Goo stands for Grand Ole Opry, G-O-O. So,
So I have something in my, in the show. Oh my goodness.
wow, I got a little answer.
In my bag, I asked Mom and Dad some time ago to give me some old fabrics or laces or something of memos that I could give back to each of you. And you're each getting a little part back. It's a little tiny, but I put it in a special way so you can hang it in the window. And every time you see it, you can think of the special memories we've made this weekend, all about our heritage, this memo and Poppy. So you all have different parts. One of them is from a bed cover that was Battenberg, and it was torn already, so I cut it up and put it in the glass. The 3 original Deloteus get these Caitlin. Alma and Maibelle, you just get one per couple. And Alma, get one with Dot and Lynn. Then the kids. The next kids are, let's see.
Oh, these for us?
Okay, this is Nelsie and Linda. These are the things for Nelsie. Thank you, Linda. You, Nelsie, you, Linda. Right. Not right now. Not in 2. Bill and Ron. Mama. And Ron. Then Mary Elba. And Kathy. This is for Kathy. Fabric. And then Sherry. Our generation has a square with it, and then the grandchildren, boys, sorry about that. I didn't put lace in glass for you. Yeah, Phil, here's what I forgot. So find your place. I think your place. That lace was an edging. All the lace in the grandchildren's was from a trim that you gave me. Just a trim. You see what they have? And I just cut it up into a shape that fits into the diamond. And yours. Yours, I have eagle. I have an eagle. We have to find an eagle. Okay, that one was a little separate piece of lace that Mom gave me in memo. And so, some came out, we did the glass. Oh yeah, I just cut it square back. So we wrapped them in copper foil.
Because I'm supposed to have lots of diamonds.
one question here in the break. And Ray wanted to know what was going on Ray's gym break.
I part of one for Lane and Doiling.
You got a double back and who's closer?
This is mine.
That's there. Come on, here,
I figured I'd sneak it closer to me that. No, I brought the stand for you all, but I only had, I could only find so much all over the net we had.
Oh, Kim has a question, everybody. Kim wants to ask, I don't know who wants to ask.
Well, I just asked, you didn't mention Poppy's brother's name, Felix, right? And you were talking about, you all three were talking about what he did, that he worked in another department store?
Right.
And could you talk a little bit about him?
He was a buyer in the linen department, and he was rather artistic. He was very good about decorating, and he would decorate his church sometimes with, big lengths of cloth, and
Was he married?
yes, he was married, he had a daughter and grandchildren. But Thomas has told about building homes. He was known for buying a home and getting it all ready, and in no time selling it and doing another one. He did that a number of times.
He always wore a hard tie at work, no tie right up in he always dressed meticulously.
But so did Poppy. Every picture.
And Oliver.
He was well dressed. What? He was well dressed. Yeah. You couldn't back then.
99 fat calories.
How many, Michelle?
11. Not bad.
What we had today this week, that's a drop in the bucket.
That's right.
Felix is the one that
Okay. Any specific questions that we can address them, or we can put them on cruise control for a minute? And it might be interesting to hear that there's been some questions asked about what it was like growing up as the cousins and
Yeah, I want to hear that.
That book reminded me, I couldn't wait for Kathy and Mary Alma to get to town to visit when we all lived in Bowling Green. The kart racing, the LRDs lived in Bowling Green, and when the PWDs would come to town, I can remember going to the corner of Normal Boulevard and 31W and waiting for an hour for them to get there, waiting for them. And running down the street when you could see them coming around the corner, and running down the street back to the driveway to wait till they got there. It was always so fun. And they usually came once a year in the summer for a long time, and I don't know when that.
That's right. Still great to write.
I want to know, how long were you all in Wewoka? Because I have vivid memories of Wewoka and seeing shooting stars.
8 years. Almost 8 years.
Before you were born?
60 to 68. And both girls finished high school, Wewoka High School. I had the Valley and Mary Alma finished college in 66.
When was it you all had a pony in the backyard?
That was Wewoka.
The neighbor.
Your neighbor had a... Oh, that was that. Kathy, he built a fence there for, put a line, one of those metal ladders, just as high as the fence. And Kathy'd go out and get over this fence and go saddle the horse and ride it around.
I remember riding,
All our kids got
I remember riding the horses with
I know,
Kathy.
gay is addictive.
And being on the pony and she was on the big horse and remember the
You
ladder.
rode my riding lawnmower.
Yes, that's what I told somebody just a minute ago. Tore it up as I recall.
How many remember the Spring Hill, Louisiana, Minden, Louisiana Thanksgiving Day football game?
Mariella.
What time?
Hmm? You do. I do.
Spring Hill.
Oh, yes.
I remember we came down with Thanksgiving and visited you and went to that football game.
I also remember the paper mill.
Paper mill. How about in '57 when we visited you all in Robstown, Texas, and we went out to Bob Hall Pier on Padre Island and caught all the crabs?
We caught a bucket, wash bucket,
We balled them in the tub.
156.
Crab?
You don't
You remember how
exactly, do
many?
you?
Yes, we counted them because we went
I
to,
remember Linda posing as our daughter,
we went,
when we went down to look at the church in south of the Mississippi
Yeah.
River. I remember Mama
South
telling me,
Puma.
what a ranch.
Smelled like
Fish.
salt.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
He took me to Sport Around where they bite every hour, except the day island.
They saw you coming.
But Tulsa, where they bite every day. The big sign says, Tulsa City, where they bite every day. That's what we went.
Another thing I remember is that when y'all come visit, and I was always so jealous of Kathy because she had this long blonde hair and she had braids, and I always wanted braids and straight hair, and I didn't have it. And so Nelsie was in this program at school, and it was a tumbling program, and they had to be Raggedy Ann's or something. And she had these yarn braids made for that program, and I can remember wearing those braids so I could be like Kathy. And I'm so sorry Kathy's not here to hear that.
Was that before you wore the red slip for hair?
I think it was that.
I remember wearing some slips too.
That was last week though.
Yeah, that's right.
One of my fun.
I remember once when we were visiting Uncle Farmer, I think the same trip as '57, we went to Reynosa, Mexico.
oh, yeah.
All right?
And the little girls whistled at us.
Yeah, the little girls were there. And I remember buying Uncle Lenny a bottle of tequila for 25 cents, but I had to hide it from Uncle Farmer. He wasn't supposed to see it.
I had a hammer ready to break it.
And then we went back across the border into McAllen, Texas.
And everybody wanted to share my love.
No, that's good.
Yeah, yes, it was.
Yeah, we came back across the border to Texas to have dinner at a fabulous Mexican restaurant, I remember.
That's right.
Remember that?
And everybody wanted to share mine because I had something different from everybody else, and I didn't want to eat my food.
You eat some of it?
That's one of the things I did.
I remember the picnics in the backyard in the summertime and on Lansdale in your backyard. And I'm sorry the projector isn't working now, but Dad had some 3D pictures of a lot of those picnics of all of us as kids, the cousins as kids.
Anytime you want to look at them, we have it.
Can we, I was gonna say, is there a chance we could get a projector?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Linda, not for the 3D.
Linda, do you
Oh,
realize?
you probably could.
I have little
At Walmart,
handheld.
there's a Walmart
He
in
has just the Viewmasters you can look
I have
at
about 3
individually.
few masters that you can just.
Might be able to get a bulb for the
Well, yeah,
projector.
we set up a table or something where
I
they.
remember the ping pong games.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those were brutal ping pong games.
You always lost.
One of my favorite memories, holiday memories, is on the night before Christmas at Alma's house or at our house. Always, I mean, I could hardly wait for that night. It's probably intimidating for new in-laws, right, Steve? Yeah, you had to do a trick that you had to do something to get ready.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it wasn't the present that was such a big deal. I don't know, I don't remember really.
It was Game of Sisters every year.
Just so, yeah, that's.
We banned sisters after the 11th.
Yeah, I don't know, I just look forward to that so much. It was such
You had to do something to get your present?
Oh, yeah.
What?
Perform.
You had to say a poem.
Santa Claus, and you'd go around the room, you had to say a poem or sing a song.
I remember singing the song we sang earlier almost every year when I was 4. My mom.
I know what. Oh, that
That's the
one.
one
The
that we
little.
just sang it.
Oh, how funny that was.
Uncle Lee told the same joke every year.
I'm a little teapot.
Yeah, I'm a little teapot. Just little
Some-
pieces. Yeah.
I'm glad we got that system out. Yeah.
I remember that. I helped with that.
You cut it out, you were shy.
I helped with it.
Still is.
Evolution.
Now she's used to it.
But I think that was better than Santa Claus. I mean, that was just such a special family. I mean, we always had a devotional and had the Christmas story. And we did that ourselves.
I'm gonna go back a couple of years, and we were in New Orleans, and Poppy would borrow one of the Santa Claus costumes from Maison Blanche and be Santa Claus. And we weren't supposed to know it was Poppy, but here's this little skinny Santa Claus.
Where was Poppy?
Where was Poppy?
Whatever the
Never saw him in the same room, did
We got cowboy outfits. Bill and I got matching cowboy outfits.
Yes, you were Roy Rogers, and I was Gene Autry.
Correct.
Yes, there's a picture back there of that.
Yeah, and we got the posters and the whole nine.
He was double holster, but Roy Rogers broke War II, and Gene
That's
Autry
Jimmy's
War
son,
I.
that's you and your brother.
We always had new Christmas dresses though.
Ooh.
Yeah. Most of mine were from Nelson.
How come I never know?
So y'all go ahead and have your fun, tell your little stories, and I'll tell you all the real stories about growing up with everybody.
What do you mean, Batman?
This is not fair.
What do you mean, Batman?
Very badly outnumbered here.
Well, look at us.
Well, I don't think you
The great grandchildren, grandchildren.
Ray, here's your earliest memory. Of family together.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead, show 'em sorry.
He probably ran around and got in trouble.
I was in the military.
Uncle Bill.
I was in the military,
Jimmy.
and I was going from being transferred from Lowry Air Force Base to Pease Air Force Base, and I came through town in late February on that transfer, and Dot was just in the hospital, had just had Ray, all right, and he was this big, with all this big flock of reindeer.
She knows.
He's never been little.
And so I got to see him in the hospital when he was born.
Tell us the good stuff. Tell us the dirt.
I can tell something.
He was chasing the
Uncle
nurse.
Bill.
When I was first married and I went to their house, I never will forget Ray in his Batman uniform, jumping, flying from couch to couch to fill his Batman. He had this cape and he
Didn't he have a crush on you?
fly
I
everywhere.
didn't want to talk about that. It's embarrassing, your father never did appreciate it.
There's a picture. There's pictures of Ray sitting with his arm around Mom like 10-year-old kid with this little woman. I know. And my mom's sitting there like.
We got a little Batman hanging on.
I remember Ray pulling that.
I'll tell you, Ray,
Here's one you may not know.
Back when Ron and I first met the Bone Sisters, Pat and Carol, he dated Pat and I dated Carol.
That's right. We have a picture of that. They went to a dance.
That was 100 years ago.
We have pictures of going to a dance.
Yeah, and Mom
And
was
then
at
our
the
wedding
wedding.
pictures are just the opposite.
Yes.
You never had the like dance?
No.
No.
On color.
Yeah, and they have like these big white.
Oh,
I
did y'all
tried to
date?
say a little while ago, Lansdale, and Linda said Lansdale was a key street in this.
That's right, because you all.
Because I lived on Lansdale.
That's right.
Did y'all date for a while or just have a couple of days?
Hopefully long before that one did.
No, I think you were there before we did.
I proposed to her after a week and, you know.
Yeah, everybody's big into a week thing and
I
everything.
know, it's a week time limit.
I remember when I was about 11 years old, that was before Ray, and I rode the train. The train left Bowling Green about midnight and would get to New Orleans about 8 in the morning. And my parents, at 11 years old, put me on the train by myself overnight to go to New Orleans to visit both sets of grandparents.
Oh, I got a better one.
They gave you a
Wait.
one-way ticket.
But when I got there, Uncle Palmer and Aunt Maibelle and Kathy and Mary also picked me up, and I went on down to Robstown with them. And y'all took us on over to Mexico, and we got bongo drums. Kathy and I did, and we bugged y'all all the way back with our bongo drums.
You didn't stop.
And I just got rid of those bongo drums just recently.
I remember those bongo drums.
We had a good time. That visit. That was a fun visit. It was great. But I remember burning cookies late one night. It was not a pleasant.
I got a story to tell you about Poppy and Grandma. When I was 10 years old, my mother put me on a bus. When I was 10 years old, when I was 10 years old, I got put on a bus in New Orleans by myself. And I rode a bus, and the lady shared her fried chicken lunch with me. And got down there, and Poppy and Mama met me at the bus. I stayed a whole month. My mother came to pick me up. Poppy says, I don't want you to stay a month again.
I find that hard, Ronnie, it's okay. I never got more than a week.
I wish I could tell y'all, go on and on about the stories I hear about Jimmy. They probably taught Ray by, when he was little, he used to like write on windows with crayons.
Hang on, let me turn this off.
Oh, God. He just would not believe.
His mother was looking out the window and he was crawling along the eaves.
Yeah, he was around the gutter, hanging, 2 years old, hanging along the gutters, 2 stories up.
All right, but let's get back to the Deloteus.
How in the world did Jeff Coach get in?
I don't know.
Said that, it made me think. His grandmother thought there was something wrong with his head because he was so, I mean, he was just a rambunctious little boy, and she thought there was something wrong with him. He used to write, he took candles in her front living room windows and wrote all over the windows with the candles.
Turns out she was right.
Actually, I have a story to tell on the sweetest woman in the room, and Alma. Boy, I remember so many times going over, and Alma made the very best scrambled eggs. And I remember she used to put little green fleckings in them, and it used to be so good. I used to love to go over there and have her scrambled eggs. And one time I was over there, and of course I was into everything and being really pesky and questioning and everything, and there was something under the sink that I really had gotten a hold of, and I forget how it came up, but it was talking about the odor of what it was. And she got kind of a sheepish little grin on her face, and she said, look at that. She said, take a big whiff of that. I think she was trying to teach me that was ammonia. And I unscrewed the cap on that thing, and I just went, that sweet woman right there almost teared up, laughing so hard. That was just 2 years ago.
In Rain, weren't you the one that always wanted, no matter where you went, you just always wanted a foot-long hot dog but cut in half?
That's right. It was way too much for me to eat. Now I get 2 foot long hot dogs.
Two hot dogs instead of one.
But I remember that very, very clearly. I've never been quite the same.
Well, how about the time, Ray, you were on the sailboat with us?
You can really turn.
The baby doll?
Yeah, tell them about that.
Anybody here not heard that story?
I didn't think he told you.
I hadn't
I
heard.
was there.
Jimmy hadn't heard it and David hadn't heard it. Tell it. That's a great story.
Our very close friends, Barbara and I's friends, the Feelys, have a nice sailboat, and when many of the family has come to the Chesapeake Bay, we've taken them out sailing on the sailboat. And they had this new little son, Michael, who was just a few months old, and he's sitting in a little baby seat down below on the sailboat. Ray goes down to use the head down there and sees this baby doll sitting there and just slaps it around, and the baby doll starts crying. The kid is in remedial education. The truth is that kid is in remedial education.
I've seen Michael since then, he's not the same.
Neither am I.
Ray
You
was
go and
really.
slap something you think's inanimate and have it come to life on you, see how you feel about it.
Fellas does that to me every night.
I was like, oh, okay.
Jesus did that.
There you have it. I knew there was a good example. That's right. I knew there was a good example for what I.
By the way, the Feelys do not know that story.
So
They
we're
didn't
just
know
gonna
that-
have to destroy the tape.
They didn't know you hit their baby?
Oh, actually,
I'm sure glad.
It scared me.
Actually, I think you've just guaranteed a long and prosperous retirement.
Did Mama come up with the Mama cookies, or did she?
She's the only one that I knew in the family who made it. She was the only one who in the family who baked. At Christmas, she baked a couple of cakes. She baked pie. She made the best lemon pie. And to this day, we can't find the recipe.
You just, Grammy, you just know it.
The predecessor
No,
to
it
the
wasn't pie.
Mama cookie
Oh, we have them.
Oh, I was talking about them, okay.
Our brothers used to come get
Them cookies are like 4 sticks of butter and a half a cup of flour.
Sugar.
Best birthday cake, best cake.
She made a yellow cake.
She
made
How do you like
With
it?
pineapple preserves between it, and iced it and white iced it, and it was always moist.
Yes.
She made her own cake, it wasn't soft.
and she made homemade peach ice cream, and she saved me a whole glass, unmelted drink when I got home.
Peach ice cream?
I eat peach yogurt almost every night, when I'm home, you know.
Good.
That's, yeah.
Ron's just full of con. Ron told me point blank, he noticed that I hadn't been riding my bike as much over the past couple of years.
That's that book.
I remember one time, Len and I had gone to a dance, neither of us had dates, but we came back home, we go in the kitchen, and I wanted something cold and something sweet. He ate the red beans and rice.
Yeah.
Cold stuff. I mean,
That sounds good to me right now. Cold red beans and rice, doesn't it?
He grew up and he couldn't stand, he'd count how many beans he had to eat. And I didn't see a bean that I didn't like.
You don't remember the po' boy sandwiches?
Dad talks about those all the time.
That was the beginning in this country, the full boy sandwich.
In Motel?
Yeah.
Uncle Palmer, do you still not like beans?
asked Reg the other day, we were at El Cancun, and I had the rice and the beans, and what else?
Something else.
The meat. I take knife and cut across, they roll up the meat, the beef or chicken, and I take the beef, cut the thing across, and mix the meat in with the beef. Delicious. Beef,
Okay.
beef, like I said, in Mexico, all that.
Refried.
I want to hear a story. This is a story I don't know, y'all probably hadn't heard because I asked Dad, I said, did you ever get in trouble when you were a kid or anything like that? And of course the answer was no. But once he slipped up and he told me a story, and I want him to tell that story about Mr. Benuti that threw a paperweight at you. He got a teacher to throw a paperweight at me.
He almost got into a fight over that. He was a little small fellow, but he was very, very funky. Like Puppy, he would bring out the worst in him.
But do you remember what you did, by chance?
No.
I don't remember either. I just remember the teacher
I
tried to
think he had to catch it.
Do I?
I think he had to catch it.
He gets sued for that today.
Is everybody sort of wound down now? Any more questions? Well, we can actually, if somebody revives any memories or anything that we've done tonight, tickles your fancy or jogs your memory at all, that we can continue conversations,
We're still allowed to ask questions.
Yes, you can ask all the questions.
I can remember almost getting lost twice today.
Let's talk about the family photos.
And now,
Okay, go ahead. I was just saying, the photos, let's do them.
breakfast is at 9.
Yeah.
That's why I said down there.
Oh, you got all the cheap rooms.
We got a TV though.
How about
We use our TV.
Channel 9.
We're going to use our CD player, our compact disc movie player. In our red
And
one.
somebody needs to be thinking about this because it's next reunion anywhere.
And how far from that?
Let's have it in Alabama.
I think Birmingham's a good
I
place.
think it is. More people live in Birmingham. Yes. We can have a Deloteus Jeff coat.
Your place?
We get all look this way.
That
was ours. Uncle Palmer? You get at Maibelle, I'll get at Alma. Just look this way. Act like you're a happy sibling.
Smile.
Now look at me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I made him look.
Why don't we all hold hands and
Sing.
let's all, if we would like, join in and just have a sentence prayer for anybody that would like to just say something about what they felt tonight or saw tonight or heard tonight. Okay, I'll start it off.
And thank you all for all the.
You can, I can't.
So we need to get one of these.
Huh?
We need to get one of these.
One of these what?
One of these shoes.
What do you say? I think said one of those. You said one of these?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. When we have a baby, we'll get one, okay? Wow. Yeah, we can think about it. Whoa. Like, if you want to get a baby for a moment.
Why do we have to have a baby to get one of these?
You start today.
Shell, please. You're embarrassing me.
See, I'm very uninhibited around these people.
What?
I said I'm very uninhibited around these people.
It might have been a year ago.
I'm like, what? Oh.
Well, you know, I'm glad you're coming out because you're really usually so shy.
Shut up. Jimmy, I mean, that you've been talking about.
There have been Zeppelin compilations of other people playing their music and stuff.
Jimmy, where did babies come from?
Baby store.
Baby superstore, right?
Yeah. They've got a new one called Baby Max.
That's the one that has double out. It has,
This is what I do to Jimmy. When Jimmy's shaving every morning, he has powder on his back and exposed, and I walk up every morning. It's like our original wash and shaving. I get all whatever it's got.
the new
Love
album.
it. It's like my.
They were all together up in then they broke up.
And you lose like some of the.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They want this long,
Except I
hard
do
thing.
have-
Whoa! All this white
everything
stuff.
chronologically so you can
And that was like
Right.
this.
Right.
It was like, I'm like,
I actually was thinking about it. You know,
Really? I know, when I see it, I'm like.
I'm fine. I can do that myself. I have it so I remember.
What? Okay, you watch it?
That's the other thing about buckets, like someone like buys.
Wait. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Hey, put your head down. Hey, Kay, you want to see it?
Wait, let me zoom in. Hang on. All right, it's not in focus.
Okay, it's right here. See it? It's actually halfway out right now.
Where is it? Okay.
It's white.
Oh, this is really gross.
I didn't know I should have get there it went.
Oh,
See?
gross.
Okay.
you like better. You listen
Hurts
back
me like
and
crazy.
you
Here's
more.
the no, okay, it's ready, it's ready, it's where it's ready. That's what I do, that's what I do when Jimmy's ready. I swear.
Oh, that makes
Couple
me
more days.
that makes me so mad. Just sitting there, just working on that thing. Hang on, let me go get a knife. I think it's ready.
Oh.
No.
I know. This is a blackhead. The blackheads are like deeper down, so you have to kind of milk them out, you know? Kind of have to work on it. And Jimmy doesn't understand it.
Sometimes they're ingrown hairs,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll tell me with it. He was like, no. This is like.
I like, you know, I like that song.
I hope I have a teenage son so that I can do this. Yeah, like. Yeah.
We could work something out.
I'm watching.
Oh, thank you so much.
How is Kristen, by the way? Is she still with that guy that over there? Yeah. I thought she'd gotten out.
I remember Pat, and do you remember singing that song from Linda?
Ooh, one more time, baby. Ooh, ah.
Yes, chili.